How are y'all doing? Good. Hey, if you're newer here, I want to extend a quick just welcome and thank you for being here. My name is Bradley Hamilton. I'm the student pastor. And to give you a little bit of what tonight is, we just want to take some time and we want to develop a safe place for you to explore faith. And so that's really our heart behind this. We want it to be a night of fun where you don't have chores, you don't have homework, you don't have parents on your case. You can hit a salad bowl across an auditorium, and that's totally normal. And that's our hope. But we also want you to connect to leaders who care about you, friends who are alongside of you in your schools, and to figure out this journey with Jesus. And as we've been talking through this series about this idea of chasing Jesus, what does it look like to live in pursuit of him, live chasing him? Because it can be a difficult thing to figure out. But one of the pieces of chasing after Jesus that I want to talk about today, I believe is going to be super, super helpful. It would have been for me, and I wish I had heard a message like this sooner than I did, because I think that this would have unlocked a whole new way that I saw my chase of Jesus. And so I want to start by asking this. Isn't it the best feeling when you're invited to something? Being invited to something is one of the best feelings that you can have, right? Your friend at school gives you that invitation, and not everybody in class got one, but you got one, and there's just something special about that. You get that Facebook invite that comes through, and you can see who's going on the event, and you're one of those people. Like, there's something so special about being invited to something. And then the reason you go to something, there's a few different reasons probably. One of them is maybe it's actually something that you want to be at. You think you'll have a great time. So it's a party, it's an event, and you're like, that's going to be a ton of fun. I want to be at that thing, and so you go. Maybe one of the reasons why you go to things is out of guilt. You ever been to those that you're like, I kind of have to go to this thing because they came to mine and I'm not, busy, so I sort of have to go. And I told them I would, and then plans changed, and so now I have to go. Anyone ever been to something out of guilt, right? Or maybe your parents kind of made you go to that thing, and Aunt Sally always is so supportive of you. You got to go to her birthday party, and that's just kind of how it works. So you go out of guilt. Maybe it's something that you go to out of curiosity, and you're like, I don't know, it could be cool. Maybe there's a movie out, and you're like, I'm not sure if that'll be worth seeing, but I'll check it out. I might be interested in that, or it's an event or something you've never done, and so you're curious. But I want to bet I can figure out the number one reason everyone goes to something in here. It's based off who else is going, right? I mean, come on, you do this, right? You probably have even asked this question when someone invites you to something. They've been like, hey, come, the Starbucks, we're all hanging out, and you're like, well, who's going to be there, right? Like, I don't know. First tell me, and then I'll let you know if I have something in an event, because it depends on who's there. It will change if you want to be there or not. You know that you've looked at that Facebook event on the invites and you've scrolled down the names and you're like, I don't know about this one. I don't know a ton of people there. But then there are some that you see and you're like, oh, I've got to be at that one because everyone I know, everyone I'm friends with, they are going to be in that circle. And so there are some times that we do something just because someone else is going to be there. The who is really important when it comes to an invite. Now, as Christians, we are told to invite people to a lot of things. In fact, if you've been in church for just for even a little bit of time, you've heard us say things like, bring your friends, invite them to a retreat, invite them to church, invite them to small group. We tell you all the time to invite your friends to Jesus and to a chase of their own, to following after him. If you're a believer, that your role is to invite other people into that. And in inviting people, there's kind of two people in the room. There's some of you who love it. And you're like, man, that's me. I love talking to people. I love talking about Jesus. I love bringing people to church. Like, I'm all about it. And then there's others of us, maybe most of us, who this whole idea of sharing Jesus or inviting friends is terrifying. Right? This was me as a high school and middle school student. Something about talking to my friends about it, it kind of makes you sick a little bit. Anyone in the room, you feel that inviting people, it's tough, it's challenging. And if you were honest, you would say it's tough to do that because what if I make things awkward, right? Because talking about your faith can be really awkward. Or what if they ask me questions, I don't really know what to say. I think if we were honest, most of us have this fear of inviting people to their own chase with Jesus because it can be sort of difficult to do that. And so the church, as Christians, they've tried to develop so many different ways to share Jesus with people, right? And you've probably seen some of these. I mean, to invite Jesus, and they're all good intention, but they've come up with a bunch of different methods, and some of them are great, and some of them have been not so great. And so we've put Jesus on all kinds of things. In fact, sometimes we put them on paper things that we hand out like brochures, and kind of like called gospel tracts, and people can read it and figure out who Jesus is. And that's one way we've tried to figure out how to invite people to Jesus. We've put things on bracelets or on our notebooks, or there's ways we can kind of get the name of Jesus out to people, and maybe they'll see it. And so we've tried that. And you've probably seen these Christian t-shirts. Have you seen these? You can wear them, and they have sayings on them, and they look kind of funny at first, and people are like, wait, what does that say? And so I just Googled some Christian t-shirts, and I thought, here's one that I liked. God wants YouTube be saved. Yeah. And again, well-intentioned, right? Just, interesting method. These are just too funny. There's nothing wrong with them. I think they're hilarious. Some of you are just really direct people. Any direct people? Like, you're just really direct. This next one is probably one you could wear to school tomorrow. Just, y'all need Jesus. And that's it. Y'all need it. Just wear that all day. And this last one, this is probably my favorite. This is my favorite. Noah. Da-da-da-da-da, I'm flooding it, right? Come on. These are all good intention, but there's ways we're trying to figure out, what does it look like to share Jesus? How do we get Jesus out in front of people? And there's all different ways we've tried, but here's what I want to do tonight. What I want to propose tonight, I think, is going to be the most effective way that you can share Jesus. And not only do I think it's the most effective, but I think that it's going to be one that you actually will feel equipped to do. It's going to be one that I think could be maybe an easier way to share Jesus, maybe a more effective way to share Jesus. And for some of you who are going, I don't know, this invite piece to me is probably the hardest part of my faith. I'm believing and hoping tonight it will set you free to go, no, I can do this. God's equipped me to share Jesus and to bring other people into the chase, and I know how to do it. And here's the better way. If you want people to say yes to an invitation to follow Jesus, then we need to be the type of people that others will say yes to. If we're going to invite people into this relationship with Jesus, here's what this means. You, in your life, you actually have a role to play. And who you are, how you treat people, how you act, how you live, it actually matters when it comes to the invite that you're putting in front of people to Jesus. I'm going to break this down for a little bit, but I want to start in the Gospel of John. And John was the guy who hung out with Jesus. It was one of Jesus' best friends. He saw the miracles Jesus did. He listened to the teachings that Jesus taught. He walked with Jesus, saw everything in his life. And at the end of John's life, he wanted to write it all down. He said, I don't want to die without getting all of this out and all of these stories and everything Jesus said. And so I want to preserve his writings and historical books that will be passed down. And so he wrote everything he could about who Jesus was. And he's going to write about this guy named Nathaniel, an interaction that Jesus and Nathaniel have. But what's interesting is Nathaniel, he comes to know Jesus. He meets him. He wants to follow after him. Philip, sorry. He comes to know Jesus. And then Philip then goes to invite others. And so now that Philip's understood who Jesus was, he goes out. He wants to bring others along in this chase. And he finds this guy Nathaniel. And here's this interaction. Philip found Nathaniel and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Now, before we go any farther, what he's doing here is he all along history, the Jews had been reading scriptures that said that one day God would do something about our mess. That for over and over and over and over again, God created all of us, man, woman, and we continue to mess it up. We couldn't get things right. We continue to rebel. We give up on God. We step away. And I don't know about you, but I feel that in my own life. I keep wanting to do what's right, and yet I just seem to mess up again and again. And this has always been people. And so what God does is very different than every other religion. Every other religion says, work your way up to God. Get better, get perfect, work on being good, and then you can be accepted by that God or by that deity. And the God that we're reading about, the God who sent Jesus, he said, no, I'm going to send myself, I'm going to send my son to do something about it as their sacrifice. I'm going to give them forgiveness. I'm going to come down to them so that they can be made right in the midst of their mess, while they're at their worst. That's the kind of God that we serve. And so he had been told about again and again and again that this guy would come and set everything straight. And then Jesus shows up and he fulfills every single prophecy, hundreds of them. And he begins to perform miracles and teach and help people understand the scriptures and who God is. And so when Philip finds this guy, he's like, I've got to tell other people. This is the one. This is the one that Moses wrote about. This is the guy. And so he runs to Nathanael. He says, Nathanael, you just got to understand, this is who this is. It's the one that was talked about. We have to check him out. And Nathanael has a great response. He says, wait, Nazareth? He gets hung up on the city. He says, Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? Because Jesus came from kind of an obscure place, an obscure city that people kind of looked down on. And what's interesting is it was always prophesied about that that's the exact kind of place he would be born from. But then Philip just goes, listen, because Nathanael has questions and he's asking about the city, and he just says, listen, come and see, said Philip. Just come and see. Now, if you read through the Gospels, this word come and see, it's interesting. It was used time and time again by the disciples and people who were demonstrating and showing Jesus to people. Now, this is a luxury that they had that we don't. Because if someone then said, hey, I want to know the Jesus that you follow, they just say, come and see. Here's Jesus. Right? Like, we can't do that. We can't just be like, oh, well, let me just introduce you guys. Jesus, this is Brian, Jesus. Like, you can't do that the way the old disciples did. But again and again, they would say, hey, come and see. Come and see. Now, earlier we hit some salad around the room, and unfortunately, middle school girls, you guys took the L on it, and I'm devastated. But I want to give you a chance to get something else. Can I get one of you three who played up here? One of you three? Back in the back. Oh, you're right up here. I called her first. Next time, I'm sorry. Come on up. Now, since you didn't get a pizza party, I'm sure your group and the other middle school girls who played with you would like to get one of these, right? Because, I mean, in this is amazing. Listen, you have 28 different bags of chips, okay? There's classic Lay's potato chips, the classic, you know. They're just the perfect saltiness, not too thick, they're perfect, right? And then you have the Lay's barbecue chips, similar to the classic, but it has a lot of barbecue, seasoning on it. Then you have Doritos. Who doesn't love Doritos, right? Now, these are nacho cheese Doritos, so the seasoning they use on them are nacho cheese. They're also in triangles, which sets them apart from the Lay's and the barbecue sauce. Then we have crunchy Cheetos. So they're like, you've had Cheetos, right? Cheetos, yeah. So it's like these bread pieces, like a chip, but not a chip, How do you describe Cheetos? Like a chip finger. Yeah, I don't know. And it's covered in a cheese dust. I think dust is the appropriate term. And but the crunchy is very different. See, there's the regular ones that they're kind of fluffy, and those they get in your teeth and they get on your tongue and then the side of your mouth. They're the worst. So the crunchy ones that fixes all of that. So they're crunchy, and then we're about halfway through the chips here. So this next one is the Funyuns. Now the Funyuns, you would think they're onions because that's based off the name, but they're not because they're fun. So these are in circles, so they're like onion rings, but they're just chip. I don't think there's any vegetable in them at all. Maybe vegetable oil at some point, but they're a chip, and they're amazing. They're very delicious, so you're going to want to try those. Now, next is Fritos. You ever had Fritos? Fritos are very interesting. They're kind of like a corn chip, so if you can imagine corn being a chip, it's kind of like that. And now these are the original, so they're the basic flavor. And then there's here's the reason this box is really special, right? Because they don't just have two types of Fritos. They have another kind. So it's not just regular, they have chili cheese. So it's essentially, it's the corn chip, the chip that's made of the corn, and then it's with a chili cheese seasoning around it, okay? See, now the ingredients on here, if you were to go through it, there's a lot. So there is vegetable oil in a lot of these, so I guess there are some vegetables. So now the calories, though, calories are interesting because one package on here, it's not as bad as I thought. Look, because let's go over to the Lay's barbecue flavored chips, 150 calories in one package. So that's not that bad for a bag of chips. Although the thing about a lot of chip bags is they put a lot of air in there, so it's really like a fourth of a chip bag. Anyone feel me on that? And then they put a lot of air in there, so I don't know about these, but I'll give you an option. I can keep talking about these for a little bit longer and describe more things, or you can have them. Keep talking? Keep describing it? Okay. Give her a hand for being so awesome, I think. here's the deal. When it comes to most things, there's a big difference in describing and experiencing it. When it comes to almost anything in our world, there's one thing to hear about it, know about it, all of that. It's another thing if she were to open up those chips, taste one. It does way more than I could ever describe. If I were to stay up here another 2 hours, and I could, reading the different ingredients and things about these chips, she would know a lot about them. She would understand everything about how they were made. But if she doesn't experience it, it's not the same thing. And what's crazy is the same idea applies to our relationship with Jesus. When it comes to Jesus, experiencing is often more effective than explaining. And too often we think that we have to go out and explain Jesus. If we can say everything about him, all the prophecies, if we can name them, if we can talk about his family and where they come from and what city and the miracles he did and what happened after that and how the books are passed down. If we think if we can wrap all of Jesus up in explaining who he is, then that's going to be the most effective way to tell people about him. And student, the best way to tell people about Jesus is to invite them to experience him. Just like Nathaniel and Philip. Now with us, we can't just show people Jesus, but you want to know how people see Jesus? They see you. Philip and Nathaniel, they had this friendship, and when Philip came and said, Nathaniel, you've got to come see this guy, why does Nathaniel come? He didn't just show up to go, guess that sounds cool. No, he trusted Philip. He had seen something in Philip. He saw this excitement in Philip. He had heard the story from Philip. He has a friendship with Philip. And so Philip was able to invite him to come and experience Jesus because there was something about Philip that Nathaniel would want to say yes to. So what this means for us is that your life actually has a great deal of impact on the invitation that you give to others. The way people see Jesus is often through Christians. Now, what makes this tough is that I know and you know a lot of people who claim the name of Christian, who say they follow Christ, and yet their life looks nothing like that. They hurt people, they put people down, they say they are going to do things and they don't. But then here's the harder part. I look at my own life and I'm the same way. I claim the name of Christian. I say I follow after Jesus, and yet there are pieces of my life again and again that don't measure up to what I hope they would. I make mistakes when I don't want to, and I'm trying to figure out this life. See, at the end of the day, we look down on Christians because they can't get it together. The beautiful thing is we're all in the same boat, and Jesus isn't looking at us saying, get it together. He's saying it's okay that you make mistakes. It's okay that you're messed up, but I want to do this life with you. I want to invite you into a relationship with me, and as you follow me, invite others to come and experience who Jesus is. There are people in your schools, on your sports teams, in your own family, and they're desperate to experience Jesus. And yet you could be that for them. You could help them to experience the kind of love that Jesus gives. You can help them experience the kind of grace and forgiveness that Jesus gives. You can help them experience the kind of attitude that Jesus represents. You could have them experience the kind of unconditional love that Jesus is. You can help them experience the kind of self-control that Jesus had. Since too often we think we have to explain and have all of the answers, but what if I just want to propose the most powerful way that you can show Jesus to your school and your sports teams and your family is by chasing him yourself. By living the kind of life that would submit all of your ways to Jesus. Does it mean you'll make mistakes? Absolutely. But when you do, even those can be used for Jesus. When I get into a conversation with people and we want to talk about past or mess ups, I go, man, I've been there, I get it, I understand that. Here's how Jesus has used my past. Here's how he's used my mistakes. Man, I messed up last week, I did this, and I'm just learning to follow Jesus better. What if your life said, come and see? What if as you walk down the hallways, people thought, I wonder who they're following? And they go to this thing on Wednesday nights, and they all hang out, and they post about it, and they tag whatever Resolve is, like a cleaning product, I don't know. But then they come into our hallways, and there's something different about them, because everyone puts me down, but that guy, he never does. And everyone, they outcast me, they push me aside, they don't invite me to things, and yet she continues to invite me. And everyone is dealing with so much, and this girl, she is dealing with the world. Her parents are in a bad situation. There's all these tests and school things she's trying to deal with, and yet she's so much more level-headed than everybody else. Somehow she holds it together. In fact, she continues to love on people and be kind. What is it about her? So our lives are an invitation to follow after Jesus. But it causes us to stop and reflect and go, if they were to come and see my life, what do they see? In Matthew 5, Jesus is talking about this, and he's talking to his disciples, and he says, followers of me, here's kind of what you're like. He says, you are like salt. And they're like, what? Like that, this is Jesus. He's given the biggest sermon of all time. He's going to tell us who we are as sons and daughters of God and what it looks like to follow him. And he calls us like a spice. Like that's it? Salt. But at the time, salt was so vastly important because salt for them was one of the most vital spices that they had. Not only did it preserve things and help things to last longer, but it made things taste better. You know why that box of chips tastes so good? Salt, amen? And that's what he's saying. He's saying, listen, he's making comparison to something they would understand. And he's saying, when you are on anything, when you are in any environment, you can make it better. When you introduce salt to a bland meal, it makes that meal that was just worth nothing, and it actually makes it amazing. So he's saying, hey, student, when you step onto that field, it's no longer just a field. It's no longer just another game. It's no longer just something that high schoolers get together and celebrate. When you are on your sport team, your whole sport team changes for the better. When you walk into your home, yes, there's fighting, yes, there's tension, yes, there's anger, yes, there's unforgiveness, but you are salt. And when you walk in there, you can be the thing that changes that environment for the better. He's saying, Christ follower, don't you understand that your life is so powerful? Your life is so important. And his heart for us is that we would be salt to a world who desperately needs it. This means that every time you walk into an environment, that environment changed because you're there. Wouldn't it be amazing if people in our culture, in our world said, man, this party's great, but where are the Christians at? Man, this night's been fun. We've celebrated a lot. But I wish some Christians would show up. Man, I don't really love this class because there's just no Christians in it. That sounds crazy. But it shouldn't. Because that's the kind of life that we're called to. And somewhere along the way, we get this mixed up and we forget that we should treat people the way Jesus did, that we should love with the kind of heart that he had, that we should forgive even people who don't respect us because that's how Jesus was. That we would walk out what we believe. That we would live this life that is so compelling, so abnormal, that the world should stop and go, wait, I want that. So you don't have to know every answer to faith. You don't have to be able to break apart the trilogy and how all of this works. You just have to say, come and see. He set me free. He's changed my life. I'm trying to become more like him every single day. He's forgiven me. He's set me free. I can love you now because I know what it's like to be loved, and so come and see. That kind of testimony, that preaches more than the stage ever will. That kind of testimony does more than a shirt ever could or a brochure. That kind of testimony gets Nathaniels around you to say, okay, I'm in, let's go see. So I want us to close and just, in this moment, if we can just bow our heads and close our eyes and not look around the room, I just want to offer in this moment some practical steps we can take. Because here's what I know about God. The way he speaks to us isn't just generalized. He speaks very specific to each and every one of us. And you thought that it was a coincidence that you showed up tonight and he's again reminding you of something that he reminds you about every week and he's talking to you in the back. Can you just know that's not coincidence? That the God of the universe is speaking to you? That God cares about you. He knows where you mess up. He knows where you're tempted. He knows where you keep falling. And yet he's rushing in continually with grace, with love, with forgiveness. And he's telling you right now, let's keep going. I'm for you. I'm with you. But I know there are some in the room tonight, and again, all heads are bowed, all eyes are closed, no one's looking around, but there are some in the room who would say, I have been compromising. During this message, I have felt super uncomfortable because I'm looking at my life and there are pieces that do not reflect Jesus. The way I'm treating people. Maybe you're even thinking of a specific person, maybe on your bus, maybe in one of your classes, that you today treated not like Jesus would treat them. And tonight, I want you to talk to Jesus about that. I want you to give that over to him and say, Jesus, make me more like you. I want my life to speak of your love. I want my life to speak of your amazing name. And so help me. And if that's you again, everyone keep their eyes closed. I just want to offer you a chance to step up and say, that's me. Would you just raise your hand? And say, Bradley, I'm just praying for, again, no one looking around but me. I just want to know, say, Bradley, I'm praying that God would help me in this area I'm compromising on. It doesn't look like Jesus. I know it, and I just want help in that. Amen. Amen. So good. God, we thank you. We love you. Help us in this. Help us live the kind of lives that represent you to the world around us. God, I pray tonight for many of us we can breathe a little easier knowing that the invite can start with us. It's not always about our knowledge, sometimes it's just about how we live. And so God, in these next few moments, we just continue to talk with you. We continue to do business with you. But we also just want to worship you. We want to sing about your truth, sing about your love, sing about what you've done. And in this next song, God, let it not just be a song. Let it be a reminder to us that you have come down to take our place. That we can run out of these doors with a power behind us because it's not us, it's you through us, God. So in these next moments, we sing. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.